Welcome back. Now we will move to the next segment of our workshop. Panel discussion 3 on state of democracy in Sri Lanka and Nepal. To chair this session, I would like to invite Professor Vinita Sinha, Head of South Asian Studies Program, National University of Singapore.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ronald Joy, for inviting me to be a part of this workshop and to chair the third session, which takes us towards the Sri Lankan and the Nepalese experience of democracy. And we're very much looking forward to hearing from our two speakers in this session. We have two speakers, Dr. Pradeep Keris and Professor Krishna Ajit, who will respectively speak to the Sri Lankan experience and the Nepalese experience. So let me first introduce Dr. Pradeep Keris, who is going to speak about Sri Lanka. He is a PhD in political science from the University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, and his research interests include conflict resolution and management, the functioning of public opinion, polling, the state of democratic accountability, and changing faces of political parties in Sri Lanka. He is going to speak to us, and I've been advised that we should keep the presentation to a maximum of 20 minutes each to allow for a good discussion. So, Dr. Keris, over to you.
Thank you so much. Once again, I would like to really thank you so much for inviting us as a team as well as individually to be here. This is my first visit to the US. I really enjoyed this place. So thank you so much for that. I thought of presenting a paper a little differently, focusing on like using data in the take you towards the kind of an argument that I would like to make about Sri Lankan politics, because this survey was conducted in 2012, and now today is we are in now 2016. Sri Lanka is a country where last 10-15 years going through a kind of radical transformation period, and it has produced various forms of kind of politics over the last 10-15 years. So we did our first South Asian Democracy Barometer study in Sri Lanka 2014. At the time of where the Sri Lankan government was negotiating with the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam in order to reach to kind of a settlement, peaceful settlement without really pursuing military solution. And so we did the survey at that context. So we conducted fieldwork during 2004, somewhere around August. And then 2004 December, tsunami came. So that, and then afterwards the political the regime has changed. So then like we was like context really like washed away, like politically as well as naturally. So situation changed since then. And then we designed this second wave of democracy barometer in 2011 in Kathmandu, and then we were the first to go into the field, and we did the field work in 2012. In a particular context where LTT is no more around, so they were militarily defeated, and Sri Lankan regime was enjoying the kind of unilateral military victory, and a different form of regime. So that's the kind of a context within which we collected the second wave of democracy. So today I am presenting my findings on another different kind of context. So we have another different regime where we are no longer talking about the post-war, we are talking about the good governance. So the theme has changed, and our findings as well as my presentation today is basically like over a kind of three different kind of political context. So because of that, I thought like why because survey still offers such a good opportunity for us to see more detailed, more serious insight into the perception, behavior of populations. So to take out that aspect and see like how it can explain the current state of Sri Lankan politics, nature of Sri Lankan democracy, Sri Lankan politics, how things are done in Sri Lanka. So because of, while I was trying to take you to some of the findings on, as my other colleagues have done so far, I would also like to take a little bit into more details and really make kind of argument in my discussion and maybe the paper that I'm planning to write and present to you all. Just to give you a bit of a, this is detail about the survey. We conducted 3,000 samples across 23 districts out of 24 districts in the country. And this field research was done during 2012, August to December. And for those who are not familiar with the Sri Lankan demographics, so Sri Lanka is a country with its island with 21 million population, and about 74% of the Sri Lankans is Sinhalese, the majority population, and then you have 12% Tamil, 7% Muslims, and then 6% Afghani Tamil. Just please pay little attention to these ethnic groups. My rest of my analysis, rest of my presentations largely focusing on those ethnic communities, because they have gone through a kind of entire, very specific experience in Sri Lanka, post-independent Sri Lanka. So that has shaped and formed their notion of democracy and their experience with democracy. So that is what my main objective of this presentation, say that the Sri Lankan democracy is an ethnicized experience. So you started today's discussion saying that democracy cannot be discussed without adjectives. There's someone called Stephen Levinsky and David Collier, I guess. So they wrote a paper called Democracy with Adjectives. So they did this study, and in that paper they presented that they have found about 550 adjectives to go in front of democracy. So that's very important, because since the day that democracy has become the only game in the town, so there's no point in talking about democracy. I think we may end up talking about the adjectives now. So it's important to really make sense how the democracy functions are part of the world. And also I would like to, before getting to the data, I also would like to highlight the particular nature of the democracy in Sri Lanka. I'm sure that is very much similar to South Asia as well as most of the developing countries. We are a patronage democracy. Someone like Kanchan Chandra, I think they coined this term about India, studying about the Indian party, political party. We started latter stage of the colonial period as a welfare state, and it turned into kind of a patronage state. So the Sri Lankan politics function on this clientelistic politics, network politics. So the most of the successful leaders, they became successful on two principles. They have massaged the ego, they have massaged they have really catered to the ideals of the singular Buddhist nationalists, while making sure very effective distribution of patronage goods. So those who have done that properly, they tend to be considered to be the most successful leaders in our Sri Lankan state, Sri Lankan society, among Sri Lankan society. So I'll start. So with that note, I would like to really take you through some of the findings of our survey, and then with the graphs, I also would like to see that how ethnic understanding of certain categories. I think this today, most of our survey, most of our presentation has highlighted. This presentation makes us to really rethink about our methodological understanding politics, because we call ourselves as a political scientist. They that we borrow this term scientist, so we also really have handicap of acquiring this knowledge in terms of political issues, because we try to understand it more objectively. At the same time, we also really this kind of presentation give us very good opportunity to really inquire about the measures, the categories that we seems to have borrowed from elsewhere, and try to force upon our society. So with that, let me just take you these main findings of our survey. As this, the graph shows that like the majority of Sri Lankans are satisfied with the democracy function. And if you look at the ethnic experience, so you see that like, of course, across all ethnic groups, the satisfaction can be seen. But whereas amongst upcountry Tamil community, these are the Tamil community who've been brought to Sri Lanka from southern part of India just for like labor, plantation labor. And these are the communities who have really like last half centuries went through kind of systematic discrimination, not only by the single majority state, but also by other minority communities as a second-class citizen. Just about we got the independence, first thing we did, Sri Lankan leaders as well as the minorities plus the colonial leaders, we disenfranchised this community. So they had to struggle for 50 years to assure, like, have their franchise back. So this, but funny, like, this seems to be the most happier group in Sri Lanka with regard to the way democracy functions. And then we ask about the efficacy of elections, whether the elections, whether it has effects, your vote has effect. Of course, like among all ethnic groups, everyone generally believes that votes can make a difference. And unlike some of the South Asian nations, Sri Lanka, from the day when we got the independence, we have stick to this particular rule, particular system of governance, where we managed to change regimes only through the electoral competition, not through any other means. There are a couple of instances where this democratic electoral politics were threatened, but nevertheless, Sri Lanka continued to stick to the electoral democracy, where through elections we managed to change regimes. Maybe end of the discussion, I will talk a little bit about the most recent regime change and the kind of democratic experience we are having in Sri Lanka. And we asked about the support for that democratic governance. Like in previous survey presentations, we gave them kind of different statements, whether the democracy is always preferable to any other kind of governance. This question was coined in such a complicated manner because it's very difficult to get a sense about the support for democracy, because it's so normative. When the entire world is democratic, everyone believes that's how it ought to be. So we gave them the set of statement to find out, is there any tolerance by any chance towards the undemocratic or non-democratic methods. So what you see here is, among Sri Lankans, you see clear rejection for other forms of regime formation. Now this is with regard to the ethnic breakdown. But once again, the most strongest support for electoral democracy, like democracy, the ones who think that the democracy is always preferable to any other kind of government, you see that high among Muslim and the upcountry community. But whereas, if you see that the 17% in the first column below, among those who feel that they don't know, they can't say, they're not sure about how to answer, so that is little high among the majority community, who I would consider as the ones who really reap the benefit of electoral democracy in Sri Lanka since independence. And this is also something that we have, this is also something very interesting to understand the kind of democracy in our part of the world. Because while we love democracy, we love other modes as well. So in this case, like we just gave them whether they approve electoral leaders, religious leaders, experts, the army rulers, and strong leaders. So every single individual who participates in the survey, they can give their approval or disapproval for each category. So what you see is people come up with like all sort of combinations and permutations. So you need electoral leaders, but also like you prefer to have religious leader. So then how about electoral but religious leader? But how about electoral and strong leaders? So, and among different ethnic groups, you see the difference for these different permutations. That also shows that like how ethnic communities have really like associate or like imagine how the democracy should be. While across all ethnic groups, everyone prefer the elected leaders, leaders from who are elected from free and fair election. But among minorities, you see that 44% of Tamil and 40 Muslims and 44 again among Afghan Tamil. They also prefer as a second option the experts, so elected expert ruling the country. But among Sinhalese, so they identify their preference with the religious leaders. Now, sometimes we tend to think that the surveys are too abstract and might not capture the reality in our democracy. But if you are interested in Sri Lankan politics, if you have read about Sri Lankan politics last 5 years, one of the most salient things that we have noticed since the end of war, the rise of religious extremism, particularly the Buddhist extremism in Sri Lanka, maybe very much in parallel with Myanmar, where so you see that the religious parties are coming up and they were really actually playing a major role in political affairs. But whereas interestingly, Tamil community also like shows higher degree of approval for governance by strong leaders. And then in that study we asked general question about how whether they trust the people who run the government to do what is right and what ought to be done. So you see that like, among upcountry Tamil community, so they extend the highest level of trust. And like we discussed in the morning extensively about the question of trust. So I mean here also we have this whole methodological and categorical issue coming up again. So what average individual expect politician to do? Whether they expect politicians to, like Tawfiq said, like whether they expect politicians to make policies or whether them to deliver some goods. Now, being patronage for democracy, so what you see here is mainly like they prefer the politicians to deliver goods. Quickly, I'll go to the trust question on the various government democratic institutions, including certain individuals. So what you see here is majority of the Sinhalese have extended the highest level of trust to security forces and the president. Now this is not the current president. This is referring to the former president who won 30 years long ago. But whereas if you so you see that the trust varies with different ethnic groups. But the good sign is like there's one thing where the people, all ethnic communities seem to have one unanimity in terms of distrusting the politicians, political parties. And that's very common. There's no discrimination across ethnic groups. I'll quickly go to my next slide. And we asked about open-ended questions about what democracy means to you. Because all this time we ask about the categories where we expect people to understand what we are asking from them. But here we just asked them to explain like what they really like to understand as democracy. So then we went through a kind of extensive process of coding to really come at this kind of a summary. So here also once again confirms that ethnicized understanding of democracy in Sri Lanka. I mean look at this. For the majority community, for 51% of the single community, democracy is an instrument for assurance of their rights. That's in a way true because democracy all last 50 years has given them assurance to perpetuate their hegemony. But whereas if you look at the minority community, they look at this democracy in terms of very much of a standard point of view where it's rule of people. And I will not really discuss this in detail, but where all this time we were talking about the perception attitudes about democracy, but now this is the behavior of democracy, where political participation. Now, if you look at this, you see that the majority have not really participated in any of those standard categories that we consider in political science as standard political participation, civic participation. And with regard to like the standard like way of participating and sending petition and participating in demonstration, so you see that that is also very minimal among Sri Lankan. So this also will remind us whether we are using the right categories. I mean, someone like Robert Putnam, we talked about that in the boarding model, they are saying that participation decline. And whereas the people notice came up with a new kind of categories to explain the existence of vibrant political participation. I don't think none of those categories might help us to understand. Maybe Professor Suhas was talking about vigilantism in our part of the world. So maybe we'll have to think of different kind of categories to understand. So I will sum it up by saying this democracy in Sri Lanka is very much of a kind of ethnicized experience. That is the problem as well as the solution. Because so far this ethnicized nature, ethnicized understanding of democracy really resisted or obstructed Sri Lanka achieving a pluralist society. It's always really almost all other positive constitutional development or the state reforms always obstructed because of this particular factor. But on the other hand, this particular ethnicized understanding of democracy also allows us certain limited victories. So one of the good examples would be the most recent electoral victory, the presidential election victory that we experienced in 2015 January. In that election, the most popular, most powerful president that we ever had in our history was sent home by the people because of the ability to have cross-ethnic alliances, and that allowed the politicians or the civil society to stand against the singular Buddhist hegemony. So in that way, it provides not only a problem, but also it allows certain opportunities. So these are dilemmas where we must have to understand and we will accept as a reality in our part of the world. So with that, I will end my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for keeping to time. I'm sorry for the rush. I'd like to invite Professor Krishna to yes, of course. He is Professor of Political Science and a faculty member of Central Department of Political Science at the University of Kathmandu. And the title of his paper is Democracy in Nepal, The Gap Between Imagination and Experience.
Thanks, Professor Sina. I will say yes also. For inviting two times. One in the past in 2005. I was only one monkey among this team who participated. Sure, we're finding in the program organized by agencies. It was a seminar in 2005, and I was invited along with Peter Disco. Was presented regional level data at the Nepal specific country. This is the second time I'm presenting. So these data those who I don't know this anyone who participated in 2005 in this So before going to my business, I simply want to make sure that our survey capture three levels of the data set. One is, if we take the whole question in 100%, we borrowed approximately 60% of the question that asks or would say from global democracy. And we do have some approximately 20 to 25% question that is common to some this. And this country has their country specific question approximately 25%. I'll start with my own country. Okay, if time allows, I will speak on these 5 issues. Introducing Nepal, identity policy, state of democracy in Nepal, governance and so I will not go detail about introducing Nepal. I'll simply find 3 find 5 listeners. One is Nepal is a multicultural state. Broadly, you will find 3 categories of groups. One we call Khas Are, which is a new tag given to the Indo-Aryan. The second is indigenous groups. The Nepali specific terminology for that is the Jadeja. And one is the people of non-native origin or who live in the plains area. The population of these 3 groups constitute approximately 1, which simply tell you Nepal is a multicultural state. And the question is that relates to question 5. The society is multicultural, but the state is not. See, it is an exclusionary state dominated by elite. And the key questions that Nepal is engaging since last 1 decade very prominently is what will be and what should be new imagination of Nepal state. The word New Nepal, restructuring Nepal has become a common to the even ordinary. So this is whether social diversity should translate into political constituency is still we are debating. But the public opinion shows some sort of a groundwork is already due to moving Nepal as a multicultural democracy. See the all 5 agendas that we can say attributes of the new Nepal or restructuring Nepal. Public opinion increased almost geometrically in a decade. In addition to 2 rounds of survey all over the South Asian countries, Nepal has one more advantage to do one survey in between. It was in 2007. So you see the geometrical increase on agenda of republican, secularism, federalism, multilateralism, and all these 5 agendas, one point that I need to refer. In Nepal, the idea of restructuring the Nepali state is not planted from the state. It comes up from the social movement. So, the groundwork for moving towards the multicultural democracy is grounded, which is evident by data also. Okay, as I referred that there are 3 larger groups, each consists of 1/3 of population. The dominant groups are Khas Are, Bhil, and Rasi. If you look at the data horizontally and vertically, the idea of restructuring, if you take the one piece out of 5 federalism, the idea of restructuring the state for federal part is more involved by, let's say in Nepal is called excluded groups. Imagination of restructuring the Nepali state is matched to the people's how they want to introduce. With this slide, I will conclude only the 2 sentences that may be generally applicable to all the multicultural states. One is dominant group prefer to introduce themselves with national identity, irrespective to number of the population they belong to. And Khas Are, as I said, they are the dominant group, not in numerically, but in terms of the power that they control. And this slide explains you and tells you that Nepal is one of the many common stories that in multicultural states, dominant group preferred with national identity. But excluded group preference is
gradually increase to the ethnic identity or regional identity. This is the tension of crafting or translating the whole idea of making a new state into constitution making process in Nepal. Okay, see how one of the contention you will see two broad ideas. One who want to retain status quo as much as possible, others who are pushing for radicalism. When we take the federalism case as a case to explain how it involved very complexity of redesigning the Nepali state. Okay, maybe because of the data here is 2000, latest data, 2030. This, because in 2000 surveys, we entertain around 5-6 questions that is exclusively related to federalism, which was not in the previous question or previous survey. 41% simply because maybe the key issues that people debated that is reflected in national media, both printed and electronic, is popularizing the federalism, how people are educated. Mainly 41% understood mainly words which were like share rule, self-rule, many layer of the government, etc. But simultaneously, others who identify federalism with identity constitute 23%, and others who connected it. At the formation level, I should say identity value more than the development. But what that is imaginary new political arrangement will deliver in terms of outcome. Again, people you will find it is not contradictory, but it seems contradictory. People associated federalism in terms of outlook with development rather than identity. So it could be interpreted at two levels. Identity first, then identity is not antithesis to the development. That could be one, but we don't have a number of subsequent ones. The others is that development is the expectation that many Nepali people perceive from federal Nepal. Okay, I will skip the tree. In naming of province, that is very contested. And 43% prefer ethnic or regional. But administrative order names is preferred by majority. And the gap is not that much. So that is why this is still going to very prominent contentious issues. And okay, from the day the federalism debate introduced in Nepal, people are have a two different contrast opinion. One of the people, especially media, bureaucracy, and traditional state structure, who are in the they directly or indirectly discouraging the federal path, saying that it eventually lead to disintegrate the country, and they don't mind to say it is because of federalism India and Pakistan was divided. It is because of the federalism Bangladesh was separated from the Pakistan. These are some of the negative example or what is it, exaggerated example. At the same time, federalism is seen as a new way of changing the part of nation. Because Nepal's history, from long time, we are having taking a part of nationalism only through the assimilation. And assimilation obviously means discouraging the idea. Okay, this is somehow one of the contention on the large and many other issues where Nepali citizens are imagining about the state. Now I come to the broadly democracy. Democracy, as per C, as per they understood, it is like the Sweet 16 and the T20. And democracy is preferable to all the time, majority of sometimes tutor. The point that authoritarian regime is, as an option, is liked by just double it, just doing double. And indifference, that is the choice of the size of the government. But on the whole, this opinion is somehow compatible with other questions that relate to democracy. So there are some other indicators which shows that largely Nepali people are adherents to democracy. For instance, support the system governed by people selected in 94%. There are trust to state institutions in general, and putting the trust to all the institutions even into aggregated form. It constitutes 68% in 2004, 64 in 2007, and 78 in 2000. I don't know why Nepali people are so optimistic about this. Nepal's economic in future will be good. It is perceived by 66% in 2000 in last year. Despite everyone is facing some sort of hardship that what together with prolonged problematic transition from 2006. Nepal will be democratic after 10 years. Again, you see some sort of harmony between response on question 3 in this slides and question 3. So again, democracy as a system to be ruled by people's elected. That is the beginning point of introducing democracy through school, college government. That is why this system, procedural democracy, sustainability and longevity of the procedural democracy is very much ensured and served by the democracy. But but Nepali citizens are not happy with this concept of democracy. If you want to give a time this one, look, preference to democratic is had declined by 14%, from 67% now to 53% this time. See the response under recent times. 2007 it was 67%. Now it decreased to 53%. And there are many reasons which explain why Nepal is people perceive getting towards this concept. See the 3 orders answer which will explain the region that we saw in the point. Within the state of affairs, undemocratic 47%, against democratic 47%. The scale is 1 to 10, and I put in 3 categories. And those who say undemocratic, less than 4, score 1 to 4, it constitutes 47%. The scale 7 to 10 is simply 7. The way democracy works, unsatisfied, 56% in 2004 and 2000, much higher than similar response rate, only 27% in 2007. 2007 is a period that we passed a very glorious revolution, which is called Jana Andolan. And in those days, though political parties were in power for a transitional period, but their whole image was like an agent of the radicals. And despite see, which explain how Nepal is running this responsibility. Prolonged transition produced political instability and sovereignty. The survey was conducted a year after the first Constituent Assembly failed to bring out the new constitution. Now, trust. Trust in political party declined. Trust in political party declined. It was 53% in 2005. That slightly increased to 57% in 2000, but declined substantially into 36% in 2000. This also, relates to people's response to this concept. Why is so? The answer may be two. Parliament's political party was dated by 60. Party and leaders were blamed as culprit for not having the constitution. In those days, the survey was conducted in 2013. The deadline even for the first Constitutional Assembly come up with new constitution was 2004. And eventually it was in Nepal. Still, the party's image is very much prominent among the other political groups. Is the power. Again, the party comes first. Perception and reality of government. Governments largely mean an effective government presents as number one, an institution taking care of the problem facing by citizens at all levels, families, a provider of service to the people, education and health in part. But there is gap between what they want and what they find. Number of respondents being witness of involved being politician and government official in corruption for those who have directly observed that politician and government official involved in corruption, it considered a higher number. Bribes as the most effective tools to get things done from the public sector was acknowledged. So, on the one hand, there is an imagination of state as a omnipotent institution, as an institution to take care of the citizen at family, local and national level, and as a provider of the service. But the state imagination is one thing, but the reality they are encountering state is different. If time allows, I will quickly run because two things will explain you about what is credibility or of the survey. One is previously as Sandeep said, is if it is very much scientific in terms of the sample, that will give you representative of the national clarity with smaller plus minus. In terms of area, I should say it is representative with plus 3 and minus 3. Development region wise. If you go through demographic of respondents, welfare area is an caste ethnicity. The plus minus is less than 5%. So this is common story of all the South Asian countries. To say you very specifically about the sample or the methodology we use for first, second, and third round of democracy survey, it is the 2 points needs to be mentioned. The sample is very scientific as much as it is possible. The second is when you have very scientific sample, then automatically it will be corresponding to the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry to have kept to time very strictly, just to allow questions and discussion. So may I invite questions? Could you please keep the question to a question and not a comment, and also direct a question to the specific speaker. I hope to take 2 rounds of questions, which can then be responded to. So may I take the first round of questions? Yes, Subhash Rashid has in the round.
So I just questions for both for Dr. Pavis and for Professor Hachetu. What was some of the unexpected findings that came out of the survey? Something that you did not expect, and sort of based on your sort of prior literature and your own conjecture, something that was completely surprising. And if you could tell us a bit more about it. Just 2 questions for Dr. Pradeep. The first is, this might be a very stupid question I'm going to ask you. In your presentation, you talked about how people's preferences for democracy is marked by their ethnicity, by their ethnic group. Class doesn't play any part at all. That's the first question. This is the first thing that struck me. And number two is, I'm very intrigued by your findings about what you term the upcountry Tamils and their preferences for democracy. It's a bit counterintuitive. Maybe how do you explain that? I'm really just intrigued. How do you explain that? Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
My question is also for Dr. Pradeep, and though I'm also part of the Sikh Buddhist hegemony, my question is why in your sample I did not see the Burghers being represented, even though I know they are considerably less part of our Sri Lankan population, but was there a particular reason for they not to be part of this survey? And also my other question, a very good question on the lines of what Dr. Siddhapal just mentioned, I was also quite surprised about the optimistic nature of the upcountry Tamil community, because they have been the most deprived set of people for a long period of time, basic necessities and even their right to vote. And we also know that they have been led by the MP of the area. You know, the parliament plays a very key role in the country. So is their view also part of their ignorance? I mean, it's just something that I would like to have your views on.
Thank you. Professor Mitra.
It's fortunate to have you, Geeta, as chair, because I'm going to ask a question to start with to both speakers, which goes to the political sociology of South Asia. Is the individual the most appropriate unit of measurement for phenomena which are collective? The reason I ask this question is because when concepts travel across national boundaries, they shed the excess baggage of culture and context. The individual emerged in the West, Locke, Hobbes, and theories of toleration, social contract, all of these impregnate the Western mind with the individual as the appropriate unit of measurement. Can that be transplanted to the South Asian scenario? And an extension of this is the second question, particularly to Pradeep. If democracy goes the ethnic way, where is the evidence of alienation and rebelliousness among the minorities? And how do we compare the minority opinion in Sri Lanka with the minority opinion in India that we have seen in the first presentation?
Thank you. So we have 5 questions. So maybe we'll just take responses from both of you. First Dr. Paris and then Professor Najit. Or would you like to go first? It's up to you. You can be democratic about it.
Okay, yeah. An unexpected finding, and we South Asians we use the term unconventional findings, which is, and two findings which is beyond the expectation, which tells you different from what the literature available tells you different. One is, in South Asia, all the literature shows that traditional local elites, in some places it is Mukhia, some places it is Zimawal, they had been perceived as agent of the court mobilization. But in Nepal, only 8% acknowledge that the Mukhia, Zimawal or local traditional elites play as a mobilizer of the voters. This is even for me the unconventional finding and unexpected findings. This explains you that people have increasingly become a very individual critical citizen. The second is, and we don't need to explain, that South Asia is known as a society, very patriarchal society. But when we put a question, if you are given a choice to vote, which candidate do you prefer? We simply give to male or female. Interestingly, those who prefer female candidates constitute 45%, against 25% who say they favor male candidate. So, on the one hand, the South Asian society, in our imagination, in our day-to-day experience, it is patriarchal. But people begin to assert that assert means it can see a kind of looking for a change. If you break through this data in general wise, especially 68% female respondents said that they prefer feminine. So these are the two unconventional findings for you. Professor Mitra's broader in my own observation, especially how knowledge production is interlinked with our education system. If you go through the syllabus prepared by the government from the school level to BA level, because up to that, most of the textbooks and reference book is given. And democracy, the word democracy is educated in our way, exactly copying what liberal democracy does. And somehow there are many other adjectives, different attributes. For instance, the democracy is differentiated. And for me, the problem, what are championing that liberal democracy could not be answered to a multicultural society. So I link up with a lot of theories, consociational democracy, multicultural democracy, democracy with differentiated citizens. My problem is it is very difficult to sell among those who are educated from this school built up education. That is why how you can hardly link with social contact. But I see a much more impact the curriculum to make in making understand the part.
Thank you so much for all your questions. I will try to answer from reverse orders. I'll start from you, sir. As expected, the questions are very difficult, so in the presence of other professors, I should not try to answer those questions. But with regard to individualism, and because we live in a particular paradigm, it's a Western paradigm where the individual is the basis, and where most of our science and most of our methodologies are based on that. So I share your concern, like nobody said, I also do ask the same question, is that the right way to understand it? But I honestly don't have answers like now, is that the way to go about right ways or weak ways or like things like that. But with regard to your second question, where the resistance, I think one of the survey, and then this also like refer to some your questions as well, what are the what we found out which we consider as salient. In the sense, you think that at the surface level there's so much of agreement. There is so much of like, kind of a, look like a happy family, like where people are really in line with what we've been taught and what we are expected to say, and it's very rosy. But underneath that, if you really go down a step further, then you see the differences, and the moment you start talking about nuances, yes, I like democracy, but then how about that? That's where the difference emerges. So I guess sometimes our methodology might not be that sensitive to capture that. Even if you look at the recent Sri Lankan experience, the regime change what we experienced recently brought in not by kind of a standard Western democratic resistant method. It's not like sending petition, it's not like march passing, it's not like that. It's a already kind of a very isolated people movement who really had to go against the government. That did the critical punch. So I guess perhaps survey is a starting point, but certainly not the DL. So we need some more additional steps to go forward. And Aisha, with regard, I'll start with the burger question. In doing surveys, and particularly we talk a lot about sampling design. I myself was a statistician, sampling statistician before I converted to political science. So like when you do survey, when you do sampling, you will not be able to capture all the different nuances, because for us to capture that, you have to have adequate sample sizes. Now, if you look at my sample, it's something like 3,400. With that, we can't really go down to that kind of utility. What we do, last time we did a kind of some sort of additional sampling only to focus on that. So in this survey, we did not try to capture, because if that is the case, we need larger sample for that. And that's with regard to the upcountry timing. I think that is also the answer to the question, like what is surprising. I mean, these are the things which made us so very uncomfortable, because you claim that you did a scientific research, but you find some findings which really contradict your common sense. And luckily, this was not the first time I encountered this contradiction, because I've been doing surveys in Sri Lanka since 1999. In all this time, you see that answers of the upcountry community is so funny. You can't explain through rational thinking like how these people are so happy while they're really poor and while they're really at the the end of social condition. So we were discussing that, and only possible explanation I can give you is it's it's also indication of the total hegemony. Like you've been taught, you've been made to understand that your life is really fine and this is the way to live and this is how you would go about. So in that case, you don't find it's problematic. So then they're happy with the system. But more than that, also like it's important to understand this particular community. When we received the independence back in 1948, the first community to really get the discrimination of the majority community, where they were disenfranchised. But since then, their democratic struggle is the only struggle which brought them victory. Whatever the victory they have achieved, they are very little compared to other communities have achieved. That's the only method that they managed to negotiate with the state, because state needed their votes, and they needed state patronage. So that was a patron-client relationship, and that is kind of way that I would like to explain. And coming back to the questions about why ethnicity, why not class, this whole thing about you're talking about the cleavage politics. The class is a kind of product of industrial revolution, right? Whereas ethnicity, caste is a kind of as a result of national revolution. Sri Lanka is a country where we are nowhere close to the industrialization, or we never experienced that kind of revolution. So class is not a way that we can stratify, we can break, understand the society where we can create kind of cleavages which crystallize the differences at the time of election. So the ethnicity has been the main mode of forming politics since the day that we were promised kind of a Donomo commission, some sort of dominion state. So what happened is ethnicity has changed the nature of the politics, and nature of the politics also in return changed the understanding of ethnicity. So that's a kind of a cohabitation between ethnicity and politics.
Thank you very much. I will take another round of questions.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up.
Wait, we can't hear you.
Just kind of follow up. While you state that class was not important, it is a fact that in the mid-1950s, class did become a very important factor in Sri Lankan politics. When the SLFP first came to power, there were huge coalitions that ranged around this very idea of free trade for Sri Lanka. And looking into class politics pre-independence, one of the arguments that scholars in Sri Lanka make is that because Sri Lanka had democracy even before independence, that is one of the reasons why the basic level of human development in Sri Lanka is so high relative to other. And there is this whole story of why providing rice at a cheap cost was considered to be so politically important to remain in power. And the fact that when the plantation economy could not sustain the provision of rice in that manner, the more sort of export-oriented commercial interests actually began to lose in politics. So I'm just beginning to question your very assumption that class
never played a role in Sri Lankan politics. That may not stand in contradistinction to the importance of ethnicity, but it might actually make us think in a more nuanced way about the relationship between class and ethnicity in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Yes, Raja.
On the question of federalism, do you see a sharp divergence between the opinions of the federal governments, legacies, or at a symbolic level, it is sort of converging? Why I'm asking this is, as you say, sometimes the question, sometimes the answers mask real feelings. So maybe there is a belief that Nepal should be federal, but not always what happens. That doesn't always reflect the actual situation.
We have time to take a few more questions. Yes, please.
Yes, first and foremost, I'd like to thank all the speakers for the excellent presentation. My question is for Professor Krishna. Is that if you look at the other countries in South Asia, I think Nepal is unique because Nepal is the only country here whereby they actually got rid of the king, and then so democracy is kind of a new thing for them, and how do you think is the understanding of this new system of government, and do you think that earlier you showed that actually the percentages for democracy actually declined, so do you think that the people are actually very they had high hopes when they actually when they actually changed their system of government, and has the civilian government actually disappointed the people? Thank you.
I think we'll take one more question and then turn it over to the speakers, if there's one. Yes, please.
Mine's a comment, so should I
Brief?
Oh,
Brief comment? Yeah? Okay, good.
So, I'd like to add on to the class element. I don't know if it came through your presentation that there's actually been a robust two-party democracy of opposing ideologies in Sri Lanka since independence. One being nationalistic and socialist, the other being capitalist, and that's where the class element comes in. And also, I want to say I don't know how if the framework of your presentation was sensitive enough to the interests of the single Buddhist people. They're also people like everyone else. So in terms of being a majority population, there's naturally the government becomes proportionally representative of a majority. Meaning, if you look at any other country in the world, the ethnic majority is also the majority of the government. If it's otherwise, if a minority is actually ruling the majority, then there's something odd about it, which is actually where the problems in Sri Lanka began, where the British colonial powers were giving privileges to the Christian community, the minority communities who were educated in English, whereas I think 95% of the population was without access to economic opportunity or education. So those are looking at the fundamentals is important when presenting in forums. That's what I want to say.
Sorry, maybe we'll just. Did you have a question? You had a comment.
In terms of the individual in the East question, I think the individual is given foremost place in Buddhism, and Buddhism had an influence in India, China, and elsewhere. So the individual is just as important everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just turn it over to the speakers.
I did not say that the class is not important, but I think that as far as to understand these differences, I didn't find, none of the surveys find that class explain the differences. So I think you are right as far as the 1956, the regime change, all these things are concerned. But since then, even there, the class is not a product of the industrial capital. It's a product. also like a reflection of the kind of feudal system that we have had and we have inherited. So since then, like we spoke about, like these two major parties have really embraced all the class groups. If you look at the political breakdown, the class breakdown between these two parties, people tend to loosely call them one party as capitalist, another party as nationalist, but that is not a correct interpretation, because you will find that these two parties doing politics under patronage or clientelistic politics since 1940s, they have managed to infiltrate into all segments of the community. So I don't think, but as far as the class as a way of explaining the opinion, I have not found anything very serious.
One question relates to democracy with king or without king. And surprisingly, the support for republic jumped from 15% in 2004 to 86% in 13 decade. How is it possible? Again, I should say the context somehow, some persons are, people's response to some persons is very much conditioned by the context. And before kings take over the power in February 2005, that is the one. And at that time, the establishment political parties who were publicly taking the position for constitutional monarchy, it had mattered. People simply only 15% bought the idea. What change happened on the eve of 2007 survey? The survey was conducted in April, but the Indian Constitution promulgated in 2007 constitutionally opens up the way to go to the republic. It has impacted, and people are seeing the politics is heading towards the republic. On 13, it jumped to 86% simply because in 2008, Constitutional Assembly formally acknowledged. So I should say this is a part that the context explains a lot of things. But living with monarchy and living with republic for let's say functional democracy, for deliberative democracy, and I don't think that it needs to look in other ways, because many persons cannot explain by this sort. The other question is a kind of ethnic divide on whole federal discourse is two things. The whole idea of restructuring the Nepali state has come up, taking into consideration of unequal distribution of political power among the social groups. Whoever two-third political posts were captured by El Brahmin Chetri. Over 80% bureaucracy was run by the same. Over 90% judiciary was also occupied by the same. So the idea of state restructuring was largely understood by the Madhesi and Janjatis to get a larger share in a pie. And the hill caste, Brahmin Chetri, those who have transcended the dominant, they felt for the first time in the history of Nepal as a tribe. So it is contested. So you will see the choice when federalism, and we use the word reluctant federalist and federalist is coming. And when the things move up, if you realize that you cannot stop it, what you can do is you can dilute it. So nowadays we say we have a group of people who want to dilute the spirit of federalism, but putting the tag of federalism. And the other group of people who looks the federalism as an emancipation of their own many traditional ethics. So that is the point. You will see the preference when you break down all the data, realistic caste diversity. You will see distinct differences between these two groups, and that is the. But again, I should say there are a lot of things which
the survey, we could not entertain the person and it was not as. For instance, Madesi has a pride of being a catalyst of the federal republic, because even after 2006, Jana Andolan too, even at the time of promulgation, federalism was not entertained. But in that when Madesi's regulation removal happened, then state response to take the word Nepal will transform into federal state. But what federal states, what form of federalism, it is somehow contested. And over the times, the longer when your memory of the moments will go longer and distance, then the appetite for radical change will be reduced. And eventually, after almost a decade, when we get a constitution, new constitution, it comes up differently the way it is codified. That is why you see the contemporary problems and the whole issue of the new constitution.
So we are almost out of time. We just have a couple of minutes, and I'm going to exercise my prerogative as chair to say a few things. Unless there are any burning comments or questions, I will be happy to take them. Yes, please.
Just a quick follow-up question, Professor. So those unexpected findings, do you think they have something to do with the success of Maoist insurgency? The Maoist insurgency broke the back of these local intermediaries. On the other hand, women participated in the movement. Did that sort of increase their social status? So, do you think there has some.
I think credit goes to the Maoists to make the agenda of change at the ground level. I mean, what do you say? Recruiting, especially those who are downtrodden strata of society, like Dalits, like indigenous people, like women, and hardly, declaring 40% of the rebellions, combatants were women. But when it was verified in cantonment, it becomes around 22%. But involving 32% women in combating during the insurgency is not a joke. So, on the one hand, in Nepal, we see the Maoists to contrast that. It is one of the instruments of the imagination and expectation of the radical change. On the other hand, it is the institution who grounded the violence at the local level. But the things is regulation, it's more. Now, over a decade, surprisingly, Maoist has become a part of the.
Thank you very much. So I just want to thank the two speakers on behalf of everyone in this room for very interesting presentations. I personally learned a fair bit, although I'm still trying to get my head around the idea of dysfunctional democracy and what that might look like, whether we would call it something else, if it's dysfunctional. I also wanted to just say a few things about, in general, and particularly addressing Professor Mitra's questions about the reliance on the individual as the unit of analysis. And I think this is where your second question about how well concepts travel across societies and national territories becomes important. So something in the back said that individuals are important, but I guess the more important question is how does one conceptualize what it means to be an individual itself? And because individuals are not isolated entities, but they're very much, of course, members of different collectivities, and the question of class and ethnicity, obviously, can separate out because multiple identities constitute individuals. So that's important. And then I'm sure this was discussed earlier in the day about democracy itself, I'm sure, right? I was not here, but this whole idea of what is democracy and how is it conceptualized, and if you break it down to rights and entitlements, then what do rights mean, what does citizenship mean, what do freedoms mean, etc. becomes very important. And then finally, I think the use of survey methodology, I think that's also important. Both of you admitted that using survey data doesn't allow you to capture other kinds of discourses that are going on. So in sociology we talk about triangulation of methodologies, and I think clearly survey data needs to be complemented with other kinds of material which can then provide a more holistic account of these things. So that's it. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Professor Mitra and Ronnie Joy again for inviting me to ISIS, and please join me in thanking the speakers for a very interesting discussion.